Joe Cool, as Shovit called him last episode, and the Cincinnati Bengals are traveling to Arrowhead in Kansas City this weekend for a huge AFC Championship matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs at home getting a ton of love, favored by 7 points, over under 54.5. Everybody in the world wants this to be a shootout, and Vegas also kind of thinks it's going to be. So 43 degrees game time. I checked that, 5-mile-per-hour wind, so Kansas City giving us some pretty decent weather for a football game. There's a lot to like, and there's a lot to unfold here. What do you guys? I'll let you guys kind of kick it off.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the last game. The matchup between the Bengals and the Chiefs. The Bengals came out on top, 34-31, with the McPherson field goal, which, by the way, his jersey sold out after getting that field goal last week, as it should. Yeah. But Mahomes was held to less than 50 yards in the first half in that game. Kelsey and Hill only had 65 yards, and the reason I say this is, that's got to be the same sort of mindset on the defense. That is exactly how they need to play in order to stop this red-hot Kansas City Chiefs. And how hot have they been in the last 7 games? They're averaging 37.3 points per game.
The Chiefs that we're used to.
The Chiefs that we are used to. Bengals will need to keep up against the Chiefs. One thing to note is that in the playoffs, they are averaging 22.5 points per game.
That ain't going to cut it.
That ain't going to cut it.
You know why it's not going to cut it?
Why is that?
Because the Chiefs have scored 42 points in both playoff games this season. They joined the 1990 Bills as the only team to score 40 or more points in back-to-back playoff games ever. Wow. So, they're on fire.
Yeah.
We mentioned how Tyreek Hill's not even, the priority anymore. He's just a fun little special experiment. And when that clicks, it's there's no way they lose that game. And that, on top of the fact that the Chiefs have averaged 33.2 points per game in the postseason with Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, that's the highest by any starting quarterback in NFL history. So, the wide receivers on fire, the tight ends, officially the best receiver in post-game history, or playoff history, and you have the best quarterback in playoff history in five or more starts. So it's they have this offensive unit, and at this point, does their defense even matter? Do we need to even care about this defense?
No, I think that's exactly what I was going to allude to. So that was a perfect segue. The Chiefs' offense has reached back to the Chiefs' offense heights. I know that there was a time where defenses had figured them out and they were getting more of the underneath stuff. But now what's happening is Jerick McKinnon's being used more, right? And Byron Pringle, Mecole Hardman. It's not like they're getting a ton of volume, but the defensive reads that now Mahomes sees, where he knows the Hills and the Kelseys are more likely going to be covered, his reads have changed to initially looking at the Hardmans and Pringles, and that's why you're seeing Pringle get a couple of touchdowns randomly here and Hardman get a touchdown here, and Jerick McKinnon's been fantastic, super impactful for them. So that's exactly what I'm saying is I don't think the Bengals defense can stop the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense clearly is capable of stopping teams. Last week, obviously not a good sample, but just a couple of stops against the Bengals. I don't see the Chiefs really having to punt, to be honest with you.
You're absolutely right. The thing is, the Titans game was close because of those 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the Titans were doing pretty good. Yeah. They got the ball first. They got the ball first and second half. Both those are turnovers. When you start the game, both halves, without getting the ball technically, you're just basically giving the other team the ball. You're prone to lose, right? Yep. Patrick Mahomes won't do that unless it bounces off Tyreek Hill's hands or his face or his ass, something like that. But this is playoff football. Chiefs are here to play, even if their defense is 70%. Doing something. Yeah. This offense is at 110% right now. And then Joe Burrow, just as much as I love him, I mentioned week 7, my favorite player in the NFL outside of any Vikings player is Joe Burrow. It's just that I love everything about him, right? And he has the arm. He's had some games with 500 yards. He's had some game with 400 yards. But this is the ultimate test of his life. It doesn't get any better than this. The Bengals are actually 2-0. They're one of 2 teams that have played it and never lost a conference championship game in the Super Bowl era. They're 2-0 in that span. So I don't know if that means anything, but it's something to be proud of.
When they're there, they come to play, unlike the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, no, they've got the experience. That's unlike the Minnesota Vikings. Oh man, that's
there's always a jab. Vikings. There's always a jab.
Always. No, but the Chiefs have experience not only with Patrick Mahomes, but they have experience with Andy Reid. Yeah. Andy Reid has been into the championships often, 4 times back to back with the Eagles, and now with the Chiefs. So that's going to be a thing that in the playoffs, experience, limiting turnovers, that's important, and the Chiefs have that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, you're again a seasoned, almost arguably a dynasty now against an up and coming team, new coach, new quarterback, young studs, everything, right? So it's the future versus the I mean, it's hard to consider these guys still not the future because Mahomes is still young.
A dynasty versus
like an up and coming. So it's like a really, really big matchup, and who better to have than a quarterback who who's not going to shy away from that, right? Like a Joe Burrow, because that dude's going to come in with knowing the implications of every aspect, not just winning the football game, knowing who the quarterback is on the other end, knowing the Chiefs, obviously their entire aura with the dynasty that they've built, and knowing that Joe Burrow is wanting that exact same thing in Cincinnati. So, dude, I'm just super excited. I think we talked about it just earlier. The way this game is going to go, the Bengals are going to have to be throwing the football a lot. I don't see the Bengals being able to stop the Chiefs enough to where it's going to be like a 25 carry game for Joe Mixon, right? And they've kind of trusted Joe Burrow now to be that guy. So it's like if he needs to throw 50 times, they have no problems letting him throw the ball 50 times. That's why this week my best bet is going to be Joe Burrow passing yards over 290.5. I just think there's really very, very few scenarios in which that doesn't happen. One, they just get blown away, like they just 41-0, one of those shits like where it just doesn't work out. And then the other one is it's like a 13-10 game somehow, a bunch of defense, field goals, etc. But I don't see that happening. The Bengals defense is not built to play a defensive battle against the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's why Joe Burrow is going to have to throw the football. They're going to have to look deep. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Taj Boyd, or Tyler, but the whole crew, Uzama, whatever. But because of that, 290.5 seems like a very generous line. I take the over. Yeah,
so, I'm trying to think of ways that wouldn't work out, right? It's very hard. Here's a proposal. So if the Chiefs somehow don't do their Chiefs stuff, let's say they want to be a run-first team, right? That could limit a lot of things. Sure. If the score is like 21-17, Burrow doesn't have to throw as hard. That is the only outcome. However, this stat tells me there's no way the Chiefs are going to do that. So the Chiefs are 12-1 when they average fewer than 5 yards per carry this season. That's the best winning percentage in the NFL. They're 2-4 when they average 5 or more yards per carry. So just forget you have a running game.
They're defying the odds of this. You have to have an established running game. Blah, blah, blah.
No.
They're better when they run less.
No.
They run shittier. They're better.
Right. Yeah. Right, because when they run shitty, they give up on the run, and then you have the best arm in football, probably ever, letting it happen. Yeah. Right? So that's why there's just no way Joe Burrow's not going to get that number. It's very hard.
The Chiefs are going to have to stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the guys.
Boyd. Don't forget about the guy that was there.
Yeah. Boyd freaking caught 100 passes?
Yeah, and 3 years in a row or 2 years in a row.
It's ridiculous.
So even if they don't score touchdowns, they'll still have to throw the ball to get to the red zone. So
this isn't about scoring. This is just about generating yards, right? So he could end every drive with an interception. I don't care, but as long as he's moving the ball.
Yeah, and we've seen what the Bengals have established, and that's just throw it the ball no matter what. Yeah.
At the end of the day, trust Joe Burrow is the Bengals right now. And so I'm taking Joe Burrow.
It was a great method. If you wanted to win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl, you knew you'd have to come across Patrick Mahomes. Yep. You can't beat the Patrick Mahomeses and all these other big names by not throwing the ball. Yep. So I think they established early when they got to the playoffs, they're like, oh shit, real deal. Yep. Let's start getting ready for the Super Bowl. Yeah. So and then that has just instilled all kinds of confidence in this whole team. And now we're going to see what happens tomorrow.
Predictions.
Yeah, I'm going to say Chiefs. It's going to be a tough, uphill battle for the Bengals. So Chiefs come out on top.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. It's about who I want to win versus who I think is going to win. Right. I want the Bengals to win because I like the underdog. I always like the underdog, and I want the Bengals to win. But how can you everything we just said? How can you refute that?
The Chiefs would have to beat themselves. Essentially, right? Is the way we're seeing them lose this game.
And they have showed no signs of that happening recently.
Yeah. So. I hope we get some sort of the Rams-Chiefs game from 2 years ago this time with the Bengals because Joe Burrow obviously is capable of putting up those numbers. 7 points. Do you think that's do you think that's a pretty big spread or do you think that's pretty coverable for the Chiefs?
Based on the history of the Chiefs being able to cover the spread, I think that you would be okay with putting the money on Cincinnati +7.
In order to cover that spread, they need to throw a lot, and this is the best throwing team I may have ever seen in my life. Yeah. So it's and a young team with defense, offensive firepower, maybe the greatest of all time. Yeah. It's 7 points, worth a shot.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Over under 54.5. If I'm taking a bet from a overall game perspective, I'm gonna take the over. Yeah. Just points.
What was it? What was the total?
54.5.
Okay.
Yeah. 28-28. That's already 56 right there. 31-28 final.
Last game was 31-34.
Yeah, 65 right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Quick and easy. That's quick math. Yeah, that's going to be a great matchup. The winner of that in 2 weeks, we will be at SoFi in the Super Bowl. So big game there for Cincinnati. Obviously, the Chiefs have been there. So they've been there, done that. Cincinnati first-timers, or first time in a really long time. Something to watch for. Let's jump to the next game.